Okay, so for the first slide, I'm going to explain about research background. So the usage of public transportation is essential as countries around the world go through urbanization, whereby people move from rural areas to urban areas. And system of vehicles such as buses can help in reducing traffic congestion, as is necessary in helping citizens reach their destination safely and on time. On our study, and this research is actually focusing on the public transport, especially buses in Seremban area, which main focus is the services at Terminal 1. And therefore, the main target of this study is to measure the level of customer satisfaction among the bus user in Terminal 1 Seremban. Okay, for the second slide, which is problem statement, I'm going to briefly explain what is actually the problem statement that we get in order to finish and complete this research. First is the customer expect the best from the services provided by the public transformation sector, but it actually can never be found. In this research, we will be focusing more on the bus transportation. And actually, if you wanted to know, that bus transportation system in Malaysia has issues that need to be overcome. And stated in the Malaysia's 2030 agenda, accessible and sustainable public transport, which is under the government transformational program, one of the government ambition is to improve urban public transport. Okay, the second one is, it was mentioned actually by Chong 2019 that the National Transport Policy 2019 and until 2030 second principle focus on inclusivity and accessibility to transport services. This show that already present services are inadequate. The second principle of National Transport Policy 2019 until 2030 also stress on improving the security of transport service. Okay, so the number 3 is the world become heavily reliant on the internet and other ways of digital communication. The need for an effective and efficient physical public transport system is vital, especially in city. Okay, so the report focuses more on urban areas, as population in cities are actually usually higher than rural areas. Time management of bus transformation is also a problem, as a customer need to wait almost 2 hours in Terminal 1 Seremban just to get a bus to Mantin. This clearly showed the extremely critical service condition. Okay, so the number 4 is weak management and customer indifference resulted in most facility in bus terminal in Klang Central, Kemunting, in Taiping, and Terminal 1 in Seremban becoming unstable. This is stated by the Berita Harian. And the number 4 is Borhan Ibrahim, Shamsunur and Rahmat 2017 has stated that one of the reasons why public bus is a less attractive mode of transport in Putrajaya because Malaysia is due to frequency and punctuality of buses. Around 18% of the car users prefer driving their vehicle instead of waiting for the bus due to the bus being not as frequent as needed and wanted to avoid being late for work. So we have like 5 research questions and another one is 5 research objectives. So I'm going to briefly explain and tell you guys what is actually our research question for this research study. First research question that we impose is, what is the satisfaction level of bus transformation users in Seremban Negeri Sembilan? And the number 2 is, what is the relationship between comfortability and customer satisfaction level of bus users in Negeri Sembilan and Terminal 1? And the third one is, what is actually the relationship between the facility and customer satisfaction level of bus users in Seremban Negeri Sembilan? And next is, what is the relationship between information and customer satisfaction? And the last one is, what is the main factor of customer satisfaction? So we have like 3 variable, which is the comfortability, the facility, and information. And then we move to the research objective, also have 5. One is actually to measure satisfaction level of Seremban Negeri Sembilan and to determine the relationship between comfortability and customer satisfaction level. And third is to determine the relationship between facility and customer satisfaction level in Seremban. And the fourth is to determine the relationship between information and customer satisfaction. And number 4 is determining the main factor of customer satisfaction. Okay, so as panel can see here, this is our conceptual frameworks for our study, which is we have three independent variables, which is, as I mentioned just now at the before slide, which is facility, comfortability, and information, and it is directly connected to our dependent variable, which is we target for what is actually the main factor that lead to the customer satisfaction. So the independent variable is the facility, comfortability, and information, and the dependent variable is the customer satisfaction. So for the independent variable hypothesis, as we know that we wanted to find whether there is a significant relationship between the independent variable and the dependent variable, and also whether there is no significant relationship between dependent variable and dependent variable. So the first one is comfortability. So the result for comfortability is actually comfortability and the level of customer satisfaction is reject hash null. This is because based on our data, the Pearson correlation R is 0.586 and the value of P is less than 0.05. So it's reject the hash null hypothesis. Okay, so there is relationship between the comfortability and the level of customer satisfaction at terminal 1 seremban because the p-value is below than 0.5. So for the facility also same, the facility also same, there is a relationship between the facility and the level of customer satisfaction at terminal 1 seremban because the p-value is below than 0.05. So it reached the significant level for the facility. Next is the information. Same goes to information. There is a relationship between the information and the level of customer satisfaction at terminal bus because of the significant value is 0.000 and it is below than 0.05. If the value is 0.05, so then we can conclude there is a relationship between the information and the level of customer satisfaction at terminal 1 seremban. So in research method, we have like 6 research method, which is the first one is research design. Me and my partner using the quantitative approach in order to regulate the perception of public transport buses in Terminal 1 Seremban 9 toward the comfortable, safety and facilities, and it is actually can conclude the level of the customer satisfaction. And the second one is the unit of analysis. The unit of analysis is actually can be described as the level of aggregation of the information and also the data analyzing the and also the data collection throughout the phase of analyzing the data. And we actually use the cross-sectional study. In cross-sectional study, the public, the student in UiTM Seremban 3 campus that using the public transport in Terminal 1 Seremban 9 are used as in collecting the data. And the third one is the sample size. In order to get the adequate, valid and general summary of the study, the sample size should be prudently fixed. So for our research study, we use the Seremban population and those people who use the bus transformation in Terminal 1, and we conclude that there is 620,000 population in the Seremban, so that is our target population. The definition of population itself is the whole group of people, occasion or anything that currently being investigated by the researchers. And number 4 is the sampling technique. Those who are stay in Seremban 9 to work, staycation, travel, or even the local or visitor to this area and become one of the customer in Terminal 1 and user of public transport buses in Seremban is the main population in this research as referred to the public population who using the Terminal 1 and public transport bus in Terminal 1. And next is the data collection. So data collection, as we use the questionnaire, which is in the questionnaire we have like a few sections, which is section A, we have the like demographic profile. Section B, we want to know the level of customer satisfaction, and for followed by the comfortability, the facilities, and information. Also, we're going to ask in the questionnaire. And the number 7 is the measurement of all instrument. We use like descriptive statistic to find the mean, standard, and standard deviation, and Pearson correlation in order to find the significant relationship between the independent variable and also the dependent variable in the SPSS.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm Muhammad Fakurin Arazi bin Fairunizam, and I will be explaining about findings. Okay, the gender which answered our questionnaires the most was females. Meanwhile, the age group that answered our questionnaires the most was between 21 and 30 years old. And the status of our respondents that answered our questionnaires the most was single status. Meanwhile, their employment status, on the other hand, most of them are students. The next category is race, and the majority of our respondents were Malays. And the nationality of our respondents were that all of them were citizens of Malaysia. None were foreigners. And the income level of most of our respondents was no income. My dear panels, I will talk about hypothesis testing next. Okay, we have 5 objectives. The first objective was to determine the satisfaction level of customers. Using the descriptive analysis method, it resulted in a mean value of 3.963, which meant that customers are satisfied. The second objective was to determine the relationship between comfortability and customer satisfaction. Using the Pearson correlation analysis, it resulted in an R value of 0.586, which meant that H1 is accepted and H0 is rejected. For the third objective, to determine the relationship between facility and customer satisfaction. Using the same method, we found that the R value was 0.296, which meant that H2 is accepted and H0 is rejected. For the fourth objective, to determine the relationship between information and customer satisfaction. Okay, using the same method, which is Pearson correlation analysis, we found that the R value is 0.382 and H3 is accepted, H0 is rejected. Meanwhile, for the fifth objective, which was to determine the main factor of customer satisfaction, we used a different method, which was multiple regression method. And from it, we found that comfortability was the highest with 0.453 in value, which meant that the main factor that customers are satisfied is comfortability. The next slide is research recommendation. This is more towards Terminal 1 itself. The first recommendation is provide systematic transportation system. Okay. The second recommendation is improve the hygiene quality and the environment itself in Terminal 1. On the other hand, the third recommendation is improve and build more transport hubs. Okay, next I will talk about the limitation of study and future recommendation. Okay. The first limitation of study is the questionnaires were not answered properly by the respondents, meaning that some of them answered for fun. So it affects the overall result of our research. Okay, the second issue is lack of face-to-face communication. Okay, due to certain issues, we are not able to physically be there in Terminal 1 to conduct the survey. Therefore, any questions, any confusion that arises from our respondents, we cannot answer them, we cannot explain properly to them. So that may lead to them interpreting the question not the way we wanted it. So therefore, they might not answer the questionnaire properly. Okay. The third issue is the respondents itself might not be locals. Okay, although we targeted the users of Terminal 1 bus transportation system, it does not mean that they are locals. So our data may be affected because of that. Okay, and the fourth issue is common method variance, meaning that we don't know if our surveys were answered multiple of times by the same person. We try our best to make sure that only one person answered one survey. So this is our limitation for the study. As conclusion, this research was done to get a better understanding of customer satisfaction, be it generally or specifically for bus transportation users in Terminal 1. Okay. From the findings itself, there is significant relationship between comfortability, facility, information towards customer satisfaction, meaning that these three are significant in affecting the overall customer satisfaction. Okay, so this study showed that there is significant results as all the hypotheses were proven and accepted.